And welcome. This is Impact 2023, our continuing conversation where we talk about all types of topics, current events, things that are just on our mind. And in that vein, we remind people that this is a conversation, a two-way street or multiple-way street, depending on how many people participate. We ask that you type in your questions and your comments into the comment section so that we can address the comments and the questions that you have. And as always, we ask that you feel free to participate. And if there's anything that you want to talk about, again, type it into the section. It'll come up on the screen, or we'll bring it up on the screen and then we'll address it. And so, as always, we ask that you feel free to type your stuff in. And we're going to hop right into the topic this week as well. As you may know, or as you all know or have experienced firsthand, we're in a current situation of inflation where a lot of prices have gone up. Prices of goods have gone up. Prices of houses have gone up. At the grocery store, prices have gone up. Different reports. There's different grocery items that have been going up as much as 30% over this time last year. And some prices have been cyclical. The prices of eggs exploded and went high, and then kind of came back down. The price of wood exploded and went high and came back down. As you know, over the past basically year, almost year now, prices have jumped way up. And there's numerous reasons for it. That's not really as important. Some of the reasons that they say that it's gone crazy is that this is a result of COVID. This is a result of supply chain issues, whatever. There's issues everywhere. But what has gone on is that the prices have gone up. More recently, though, there have been some indications that the prices have not gone up for any particular reason other than greed. People have raised prices, or companies have raised prices to cover their margins. And they have, and experts have been saying that they've covered them enough. They've covered the margins enough. So they kept their same profit margin that they had when prices were low or when it was cheaper to have employees. And now they've kept those profit margins up. And so now it's about greed, because they're not raising prices because they have to. They're raising prices because they can. We're in an environment where you can't really tell the difference between them raising prices because they have to or raising prices because they just want to make some more money. And so that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. But who does that affect? You know, when you have that greed going on, you're raising the prices, and then what happens is that the people who are at employees now, they get paid more because they have to get paid more in order to cover their cost of living, because everybody's raising prices. And so it's this vicious cycle of, all right, well, you know, Joe Blow makes $40,000 a year. Now he needs to make 45 because everything costs more. He can't afford to get gas, can't afford to eat, can't afford to get a car. And then the company says, well, because we had to raise our employee Joe Blow up to 45,000, now we have to raise the cost of our products so that we can afford to raise him and all his coworkers' salary. And so it's a vicious cycle that's going to just keep going, and the interest rates go up, and then blah, 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 blah. It's just a crazy thing. And so, and they are reducing quantity and charging more. That's another part of it. They're reducing the quantity in products as well. So if you were used to getting, you know, a 12 pack of something, now you got to get a 10 pack, and they're not even going to tell you. They're going to charge you the same price, if not more. So yeah, that's another part of it. So then why is this important? Why are we talking about it? Because here's what happens. Who gets affected the most? All right. If you're somebody who's doing well and you have a nice job and all the prices are going up, you can go and you can complain to your employer, as many people do, and then they will have to respond by raising the cost of living or the wage adjustment. So they'll give everybody, if you're going to get an annual 3% increase. Well, they say, well, inflation is crazy, so we're going to give a 4% increase to your salary or to your pay. And so if you have a decent job, when I say decent job, or you have a job where there's some flexibility there, you're going to be okay. You're covered. Because yes, everything may cost more, and maybe your salary or your pay is not going to go as high or as fast as everything else, but you're going to be okay. Your salary is still going to go up, because that's the part of the problem of this whole thing, is that salaries are going up. But the people who are the most vulnerable, those who don't work at all, those who are on government assistance, those who are on disability, those who are in between jobs, or those who have jobs that their pay doesn't really change. Frontline, as we call them, the frontline workers, the people who are out there in front of folk, customer service, things like that, where your pay is not really changing. That's who's getting hurt the hardest, or getting hit the hardest, and getting hurt the most. Those people, those of us who are getting hit the hardest, now we're falling at a bigger gap. It's one thing where, all right, eggs cost $1. All right, so I need to figure out a way to get $1, and I have nothing. But then there's another thing where eggs cost $5. I have to figure out how to get $5, but I still have nothing. And so the bridge, or the gap that I have to get to just to get the basics, has gotten even larger. Whereas if somebody gave me a $20 bill, I can manage. I can go out here and I can buy this, and this. Now I get a $20 bill and I can buy 3 things. And so that's what we're talking about, as far as the most vulnerable is getting hurt the hardest, or getting hit the hardest, getting hurt the worst in these situations. So then the response for us, the church, the response for us, the community that's giving back, is then our response has to be even greater. And so we have to figure out how to make our response even greater. I've talked about this before. We've talked about this before. Here we have a community garden where we can able to grow vegetables and things like that. But what we have to be able to figure out to do is that, and recognize that the gap just got a lot wider, or the gap just got a lot further, wider, deeper, however you want to say it. And that means our response has to be a lot more impactful. Because what we were able to do before, that same basket of goods, that same, if we're all gonna raise money and do a $20 bag of food and give it to people, that same $20 bag of food doesn't cut it, because they raise the prices so much. I give you an example. Pepsi, and this one hit with me, because Pepsi has a Pepsi product, so they do like chips and soda and goods like that. They raised their prices, and they stated that they raised their prices 16% this year, after they had already raised their prices to cover inflation. So they raised their price to cover inflation, and then they raised their price an additional 16% just because they could. And so for me, like I will use Mountain Dew, zero sugar, of course, but Mountain Dew as because I don't drink coffee, so it's as a drink, as an energy, a pick me up or whatever. And so you used to be able to get a 12 pack for $2.50, and now a 12 pack is $5-6. And so even though they only raised their stuff 30% here and then 16% here, when you do the math, they actually raised it 100%. And so you think about that when you're looking at somebody who maybe has children and different things, and you're looking at 100% increases in prices, and how you're supposed to manage and survive. And so then you're looking at who churches, organizations, charities who are providing services for other people. Are we raising our efforts 100%? Do we have the ability to raise our efforts 100%? Because if the price of the goods are 100% more, how do we then catch up and do 100% more? Same thing with jobs and opportunities where people now, there are jobs and opportunities out there, But the gap between what a job has to pay for you in order for you to survive is so much drastically different. And so whereas before you can have a $30,000 a year job and you can survive. Now you have a $30,000 a year job, and because all the prices have gone up, you're struggling and you're in trouble. And so why are we talking about this? Again, this is because what do we have to do as the church, as a faith-based community, as nonprofits, as all of those things? What do we have to do? We can ask people to give more because we're hoping that everyone has benefited from the raise in they're raising their salaries, and they're benefiting from inflation as well as far as a raise in what they're getting from their companies. So we can ask them to give more, to sacrifice more, or we got to figure out some more creative ways and some other ways to be able to help those who need the help. And so the community garden, that's one way. We need to start growing our own food and trying to produce some things in order to get people the food and things that they need. I know that we always have done, people have done clothing drives, but I think we need to be a little bit more creative in what we're doing there to make sure that people can get the clothes and items that they need. Because it's not going to get, unless we will come into a situation of where the economy switches altogether and there's a deflationary situation where prices are going to come down, it's not going to get any better. It's going to either stick where it's at, or it's going to continue to get worse. But what it's not going to do is get better. Dollar Tree is $1.25 now. It used to be $1 for every item. It's not going back to $1. Like they're not going to one day wake up and be like, you know what, everything has gone good in the economy. Let's go back to $1 and give everybody some relief. It's not going to happen. So what we have to figure out is how do we bridge the gap, and how do we make sure that our efforts to help people can kind of fill in the gap. And so we got to come up with some new ideas. Comment: middle class, lower middle class, working poor. These are those who are hurt the most. The poor may have some advantage only because they may be able to use. They may be used to working with less. Yes. Yeah, there may be an advantage there because they're working with less. But there's a good thing that you're saying here. Middle class, lower middle class, working poor. They're actually getting hurt a lot of the times the most, because what happens is you fall into this gap where you make money, but you make too much money to qualify for any services. And so those people who qualify for services and exceptions can oftentimes get some things that you don't have access to. And unfortunately, that puts you in a bad position. I'll give you an example. During the summertime, there's a lot of young parents or parents with young children have to figure out where they're going to go and what they're going to do for the summertime. If you are deemed to be in the poor or working class or below the poverty line, you're going to have opportunities for your child to get free services. So you can send them to a camp for free for the summer, or there's an exception at this particular camp and this particular camp, so they can go somewhere, and you don't have to pay that, and you don't have to pay. They're going to go for free. They're going to have food provided, so that's taken off of your table for the summertime. And so that's because you don't have money and you're in a situation of you don't have funds. You're going to be able to have those advantages. Well, if you're middle class or working poor, you don't make that much more than the other person. But you're going to now have to pay, and you're not going to qualify for services or qualify for the exceptions, and you're going to have to pay for your children to be able to go somewhere for the summertime. You're going to pay for your children to be able to go to some kind of daycare or summer camp or program, and you're not going to get the exception. You don't qualify. And so that group in the middle, they're going to struggle even more, because you're looking at $150, $200, $300 a week to pay for little Johnny and little Sue to go to programs. And basically, at the end of the day, after you've paid that money, you've paid money for food because you're not getting any government assistance. You paid money for housing because you're not getting any government assistance. You find yourself in the similar situation financially as the person who's poor. So the working poor, the middle class, you find yourself all in the same boat. The difference is they're able to get a little bit of stuff. You get the same stuff, but you have to pay for it. And at the end of the day, neither one of y'all have anything at the end of the week. Neither one of us has any money left over at the end of the month. And so that's a group that gets hit, and that we have to recognize, because that's many of the people that we, that's many of us in church. Many of us are working poor. Many of us are middle class or lower middle class, And so we're not only providing for others, but we're providing for ourselves. And we have to, I think one of the things that we have to learn, some of us have to learn, because I see it all the time, is you got to learn how to give, but you also have to learn how to receive. Some of us get too proud on ourselves, and we think that, oh yeah, well, I'm middle class, so I don't have to, receive. And then we end up hurting ourselves, and we end up struggling because we're not taking advantage of the same things that we're offering out to other people. Comment. Also, some of the stores and distributors are starting to sell a great deal of produce seedless, thus driving up the price of produce. That's a great one. That's a great one. Because you sit back and you think, oh man, all of this seedless produce, yeah, man, I want these grapes with no seeds in it, or these apples with no seeds in it, or these watermelons with no seeds in it. It sounds good, and except for the fact that if you are out here, you can use those seeds to grow your own. But now you can't do that because everything is seedless. And that's a great point, that some of the little tricks and tools that we used to use, or that our parents and grandparents used to use back in the day, they're kind of eliminating some of those things. We can't use those tricks and those tools anymore because they're kind of taking them off the table. And so then it goes back to us again, us as the church and us as the giving community. We got to be even smarter to kind of jump ahead and go 2 steps ahead, and thinking of what we're going to do when we're helping other people and ourselves. Good. Another comment. As a church, we need to encourage people to come together in community. In Acts, in the Bible, the people came together and there was not a needy person among them. They took care of one another. Yeah. And I like that, because that. But I like that, and I think we don't fully think that through sometimes in our thought processes, because we'll just sit here and we'll say, yeah, everybody just came together, and we just, people came together, and they're thinking that means they came together and they gave some money to make sure nobody was needy. But I think it's deeper than that with us now. We come together for different things. It's not just about money. It's about time. It's about other stuff. It's about just everything. For example, I remember I went to this church, and at the end of the service, they said, before everybody got up and started talking and leaving, they said, so-and-so is moving. And they said, I need, I can't remember the number. Like, I need 5 men who are going to be willing to help this person move. So there was never a consideration of this person having to go out and buy anything. They're not going out and renting a truck. They're not going out and getting people to help them move. At the end of the service, there was an expectation from the church that the pastor said, I need 5 people. And at that moment, they waited there, and then one person raised their hand and said, well, I can help out. I was like, all right. And we didn't move on until 5 people raised their hand to participate. And one of them had to have a truck. So one of the people was like, yeah, I got a truck. And then they had 4 other people who said they were going to volunteer, and they were going to go to this person's house on Saturday and have them moved. That, I think, is what's going on in Acts as well, when it's saying we're coming together. It's not a situation of we're coming together and we're just going to throw some money out here. But as that church did, it was an expectation that this person is doing something, and we're going to make sure that they're okay. I don't know if that person was well off, middle class, working class, or whatever. It didn't matter. What was not going to happen was they weren't going to waste, that's the wrong word, they weren't going to spend $200, $500, $1,000 to hire movers to come to their house. What they were going to do is their church said, you're moving, we're going to move you. And I think in that situation, I think sometimes we have to do that. For the middle class person who doesn't really want to get help. You know, I'm all right, I'm good. I'll just struggle through. I'll pay these movers. No. The church said, you're not gonna waste your money. We're gonna do this because you got kids or you got other things you need to pay for, or you don't know what else is gonna pop up, so we're gonna move you. And so I think that's an example of, and that was what this church did, but I think that's an example of where we need to get to sometimes with our mindset. And we're in a time where it's gonna get tough for some folks, and we have to figure out different ways to make it untough. Maybe if you're selling your car, instead of selling it out on the open market, before you sell it, you say, all right, I'm going to sell it within the church. If anybody wants this car, I'm going to sell it here for $5,000 before I go out and sell it out to the community for $7,000. So if somebody in my church wants it, I'm going to sell it for $5,000, just to cover my bases. But if I'm going to sell it out in the open market, it was really going to be $7,000. Things like that, opportunities like that, where we use ourselves as community to make sure that we take care of one another, and then also take care of those, who come within our area, because that's a little harder to do. I mean, if people don't know, they can't come. But we definitely need to take care of one another, and I lean on that one, and I say that's where we need to get, where it's a little bit more creativity going on, because the struggle is going to be real. Well, not going to be. The struggle is real for people right now with these prices going crazy. You just can't, since so and so is not working, they may be able to keep some kids during the summer. Yes. Yeah. That's a great example, because if one person's not working, maybe they can keep other people's kids. And it doesn't have to be a situation of where you're trying to make a bunch of money or getting all this money. I'm not working, I can keep your kids, then maybe you can provide maybe you can provide me some money, some food, some things like that. But it doesn't have to be a bartering system. Look, I'm just not doing nothing right now, so I can just keep some kids. It doesn't. I think all of that works together. All these opportunities work together, and I think as the church, and again as the giving communities, we have to be extra creative, because again, when I looked at this, when I stay up on the business news and the business side of things, and I saw the inflation, I see what's going on. But what I didn't realize, and people have been telling me, but I didn't want to hear it. I've heard it, but I didn't really want to hear it, is that these companies were getting greedy. And I at first I was sitting back and I could justify what was going on, because I saw how it was working. Hey, salaries are going up, so costs has to go up. Costs have to go up. That means the prices at the counter are going up. Prices for goods are going up. It was a cycle. I saw how it was going. But then to hear that it's going up, not because it has to, it's going up because it initially had to, but then they saw some opportunity there where they can push it a little further, because it's already moving up anyway. Let's push it a little further. Now that I see that it's a greed scenario and a greed thing, that doesn't stop, and it gets more aggressive. I'm not. Again, I gave that Pepsi example. Not that Pepsi is some bad place or anything like that, or I don't want anybody to stop drinking Pepsi. But that's an example of just what the businesses are doing. There was no reason that Pepsi, again, the 12-pack was $2.50 last year, $5, $6 now. And it's because, again, they met their margins. So if they were making 10% off of each case last year, they're making 10% now, and then decided that they were going to even go further more and make more than 10% because they could. Not because they needed to, because all you need to do is make whatever margin you need to make. And so what I implore everybody to do, I'm going to do it, and I implore everybody else to do, is just let's get our creative hats on, our creative juices going, so that we can figure out what do we have to do to be able to take care of all of us. And what do we have to do to be able to maximize how we take care of those who don't have? Because it's harder now than it's been in a while. You can't say it's harder than it's ever been, because I don't know, I ain't been around for so long. But it's harder now than it's been the past few years. It's much, much more difficult. All right. Well, that's it. That's what we have today. Again, I encourage everybody to think about this, to think about this topic, and then share it with other people, and let's brainstorm and come up with some ways that we can take care of them. we have to do it. That's what we're supposed to do. All right. As a reminder, on Thursdays we have Thursday our Bible study, weekly Bible study, same place, 7:00, Facebook and YouTube, and also on Sundays we have service, 10:00, same place, Facebook and YouTube, and also in person if you can. And so the address is on the screen, so you can take a look at. Thank everybody for joining. Thank you for all the comments. Again, if you have any extra comments, go ahead and put them in there. Or if you have a topic that you would like, feel free to contact us or leave it in the comment section. All right. Have a good one, as always, and have a good night.